Mint is still $15 a month for premium wireless. And if you haven't made the switch yet, here are 15 reasons why you should. 1, it's $15 a month. 2, seriously, it's $15 a month. 3, no big contracts. 4, I use it. 5, my mom uses it. Are you playing me off? That's what's happening, right? Okay, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, $15 per month equivalent required. New customer offer first 3 months only. Then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
I was deep in it, gaming on Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 7. Unfolding the screen made it twice as big and so immersive, I kinda lost myself. Might have trolled a little too close to the sun. Someone in the chat told me to touch grass, so I took my Z Fold 7 outside and kept playing. Still won, got a tan, and a nice little reset. Powerful processor, realistic graphics, you stay locked in, streak stays alive. Can your phone do that?
The new Galaxy Z Fold 7. Get yours at Samsung.com.
Welcome to Farm Here Daily, a Field Forward podcast. I'm your host, David Geiger. Today on Farm Here Daily, we're going to take a look at West Central Iowa ahead of the Labor Day holiday weekend. And as we enter September, take a look at what folks are thinking about come harvest. And Mike Witt, agronomist with ISU Extension, will join us for that. Please be sure to like and follow the podcast as well as our social media channels at Field Forward Pod. We would love to have you join our community, keeping folks informed about what is affecting our farmers. This is Farm Here Daily. And joining me on Farm Here Daily, we have Mike Witt, field agronomist with Iowa State University Extension over in West Central Iowa. Mike, it's been a bit since you've been on the program. Excited to have you here, and let's hear about what's going on in West Central Iowa. What are the fields looking like? How you doing? And is everyone ready for the Labor Day holiday?
Yeah, thanks for having me back. I would say yes, everyone is ready for that Labor Day holiday. And after that, what we're really going to be looking at is farmers are going to start pulling out the machinery, letting it get a little sun on it, warm itself up a little bit so it can start to get prepared for harvest season, which will be right around the corner here before we know it. So corn and soybeans across the area, they're really maturing at, I would say, a fairly decent pace. I would say also a little bit ahead of pace, especially when it comes to corn, because we are running a little bit ahead when it comes to some heat units that we've been looking at across the area. So corn maturation is coming right along. We're in that dense stage of corn development with the kernels. Another thing that I'd say with corn that we're really looking at is we're looking at silage has really started to pick up across the area with some of that earlier dry down for various reasons. That's what we're starting to see when it comes to that. And soybeans as well, around that R5 scenario. And with that, they're starting to really, that pod formation is working pretty good, and they're starting to fill out there across the area.
I think the big elephant in the room is disease pressure. Are you seeing much of that in your part of the state, or is that more of a Eastern Iowa thing?
Well, I would love to say that it's only an Eastern Iowa issue. However, we are seeing it. It's rear its ugly head out here in West Central. So for corn, the big disease that we're looking at is southern rust, along with everyone else. Not saying anything other folks aren't seeing. And for us, that southern rust, a lot of times it's just in the lower part of the canopy. So with it being in that lower part of the canopy, it is not good as far as if you're looking for stay green, if you're wanting that corn to stay green for a long period of time. It is going to increase that dry down. And when we were talking silage before, that's one of the main issues we're seeing with the silage is the grain itself might be a little wet, but we are running into a lot of times that leaf tissue is really starting to degrade. So farmers are having to go out there and make that decision, go out and harvest that silage with that. Now, that rust won't really hurt or have any toxicity towards cattle in that feeding process. But what it will do, again, is it will reduce that feed quality that we've got going on with that. So we are also able to see, when it comes to that rust, we are able to see some differences in fungicide applications across the area in corn. We're seeing a lot of the ones that had some fungicide applications, that corn is looking better above that ear leaf and looking like that across the field. Now, is that going to correlate substantially to yield and any of those things? That's still to be determined out there in that. So just because the corn looks pretty doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get a lot better yield out there for that. Now, if we turn the table to soybeans, the real disease that we're seeing across the area would be SDS, or sudden death syndrome. That's just the one that's kind of come in this year. There is some white mold out there as well that we're seeing, but predominantly we're seeing yellow patches out in the field. It started to come in a few weeks ago. Now those yellow patches are getting larger and larger, and a lot of that is going to be some of that SDS coming in across the area.
How is stock health doing in terms of the corn crop? I've been hearing concerns of how quickly it matured, and then also the disease pressure making it so we might see some bent or fallen over corn this harvest.
Well, there's a couple different things that go on with that. So with all the moisture that we've had this year, in comparison to previous years, there is potential for there to be some stalk diseases and some things that go along those lines that can make some of that stalk not be as strong. But the other bigger issue, I would say, not necessarily with that, would be some root issues that we might be starting to see crop up. And with that, it's because, again, it's been so wet, the roots haven't had to go deep down there in order to get a lot of good, solid footing in that. Now, those two potentials, what they can lead to, they can lead to some brittle snap going on there as far as across the area, and some plants snapping over and leaning as well when it comes to that. If we get some strong winds, some of that lodging that can occur. So those are things that we can watch out for. Not much we can do about them, but there are things that we can watch out for in that. And if you start to see some stalks to go down or things along those lines, then it comes to, what's my harvest plan? Do I have some hybrids that, if I go back and look at my numbers from what I planted earlier in the year, where we have stalk diseases and things like that, well, maybe some are better hybrids than others. And if we're seeing some issues, we might need to adjust where we want to harvest first, if we can do that based on maturities.
Another note to make then, as we approach all of the potential for issues this harvest, one that I've been hearing around as well is, with all the disease pressure and with this potential chance to dry out a little bit, we're going to have a bit of a dusty crop this year. Do you have any notes about that over in West Central Iowa?
Well, in West Central Iowa, we do tend to have a lot of wind out here. So with that, some of that dust and some of those things that we can have, the biggest issue that I would say when it comes to that is make sure. A lot of times people will skimp or not want to necessarily change the filters, those in-cabin filters and those things like that. I attribute it to like your car, that you take it to the mechanic and they give you all this list of things and you're like, oh, do you want to do the in-cabin filter as well? And usually you just go, nah, I'm okay. Well, those do wear out. And to say that farmers check those all the time is probably not a fair statement. So make sure you go in. If we're going to have a drier season and it's those types of scenarios, maybe just add that to your checklist this year of things, get those in-cabin filters ready to go and switched out, and then we should be okay in a lot of those things.
That sounds like a piece of advice my grandpa, who I respect deeply, would give about house filters. He is a change it every month, on the month type person, and I tried to be that person myself, but sometimes a couple months go by and it hasn't been changed yet. So I can see that one being procrastinated on a little bit. So okay, a little bit of filters potentially going on this harvest season. Any other concerns, questions, comments you're getting in the day-to-day from farmers as we do get closer? Maybe 3-4 weeks from now we'll have combines really starting to roll out.
Well, the other question that farmers are really bringing up is a little bit of concern about grain quality. And when it comes to grain quality for corn, especially, one of the big things that we have is we still have potential for very good yields out here with the rain, with the moisture, and with this crop. And with that, a lot of times if you have excess yields and some of those things, well, you want to store that. You'll have your contracts that you can have. You'll get whatever grain you need to sell to settle up, we'll say, throughout the year. And then if you have extra, you might be like, well, maybe I want to store that and market it a little bit later on. The issue you have is if we have poor grain quality due to environmental conditions or other things like that, you might not be able to store that grain as well or as long as you would like. So when it comes to grain quality and grain quality potential, we just need to make sure that we watch it. And if you have high quality grain, which I hope everybody does, and I hope people listen to this and say, man, he was wrong, my grain quality was awesome, I'm okay with that. I would like that. But if you have those issues, make sure that you go out and you go, well, this might not be the best field. This field is having some issues. So I might not be able to store this, or I might not be able to store it as long, or I have to make some adjustments to temperatures and things like that, just to get that in there and plant that little seed so that farmers can go, well, this field isn't as good. This field right here, I'm getting really good yields and I have really good grain quality. Maybe I'll put that one in the bin and save that, knowing I can take these others somewhere else. So it's just hedging your bets on that when it comes to that grain quality.
You just reminded me that it's been a couple months since I've last talked with Dr. Herberg and over at ISU, and I'm sure he has plenty of things to say about this crop season. So appreciate that. Absolutely. Keep an eye on that grain quality as we get closer to harvest. One more note then, as we do go, as you're out scouting here near the last few growing days that we have, what is the main thing you are trying to keep aware of, keep an eye on, and you're telling farmers to make sure to keep scouting for?
Well, right here at the end, one of the last things that I'm really telling farmers to do is we're kind of set on what our yields are going to be. We can't do much for that. We can't do much for adding fungicides. We can't really do much for soil fertility or add-ons to this crop. We got to kind of ride it out. But one thing I will tell farmers to do is evaluate your weeds. Right now is the perfect time when you go out there and be like, well, you know what? How did my weed control do? Because it's past state fair time and we're getting into September. So if water hemp has popped up through your soybean fields, you can see it. If you're having issues in certain parts of the field where you might have areas where you think maybe I've got a resistance issue, you should be able to be seeing that popping up. And I will also say it's not just soybeans, cornfields as well. Make sure you go out and you look in your cornfields and be like, hey, well, you know what? I've got quite a bit of water hemp when I'm out harvesting. I'm going to have to deal with that next year. Maybe I need to look at that and adjust my herbicide programs and things like that. You can't change it, but gathering that knowledge right now of what has escaped and what that looks like will give you a leg up on next year, because if you don't evaluate it now and write it down, by the time you harvest and everything goes through the combine, combines are probably the greatest weed seeders known to man. They are really great at taking that weed seed into that head and just dispersing it all over coming out the back. So again, making sure that you know those areas, see what you've done, and make plans for the future when it comes to some of that weed control.
Mike, I think we have a whole bunch of tractor companies that are calling in their sponsorship. Just kidding. No, I don't have any of that stuff here. No, yeah. It's true. It is true. We have to be aware as tractors and as machinery are going through fields, because unfortunately there are other plants out there. So I appreciate that note. What is a piece of advice you give then on making sure to avoid that type of spreading? Do you go into the fields and kind of pick some of them preemptively, or how do you maneuver around that?
Well, some of the things you can do is, if you have a field that is particularly weedy, you might want to consider, well, maybe I can harvest that one last. Rather than harvest it first. And then, yes, your combine will clean out as throughout the season. But again, no one kernel cleans or cleans out every single inch of a combine, and weed seeds are small. So you might take it to the next field or something along those lines when you do that. So if you have one that's particularly weedy, possibly leave that to the end. Now, if you have areas of the field that are really bad, again, you can harvest around those areas, but a lot of times folks don't want to do that, because then I've got to bring stuff back to that field and do those things as well. So it's a lot of times you can't do much about it in there, but again, there are methods. If you want to talk equipment, there are different methods that you can do as far as weed seed destroyers and things like that can be put on different combines, and there's different research out on those things. So there is all of that if you want to go down that route. But just for most farmers out there, it's either avoidance or do the ones that are your problems last so you don't bring those problems into other fields.
Mike, one more question before I let you go. It's going to be the hard-hitting one here, maybe even a gotcha question if you think of it that way as well. Got any good plans for Labor Day weekend as you head into it?
Well, I will honestly say I graduated from Iowa State. I am a solid fan. I enjoyed the Ireland scenario that we had against Kansas State.
Absolutely.
So again, I might be able to be found tailgating up at the Iowa State South Dakota game. I will not disclose my location, but there is a possibility that I will be up there enjoying the festivities with my fellow Cyclones.
Sounds like a fantastic Labor Day weekend. Thank you so much. Mike Witt is the ISU agronomist, extension agronomist for West Central Iowa, joining us on Farm Here Daily. Thank you so much for your time, Mike.
Thank you.
This is Farm Here Daily, and ahead of the holiday weekend, we're going to take a look at the marketplace.
Gatorade is the #1 proven electrolyte blend designed to hydrate better than water. So you can lose more sweat and raise your game. Gatorade, is it in you?
September corn, 12.5 cents higher at the close, $3.98. December rising 10 1/4, $4.20 1/4. Soybeans in September, 8.5 cents higher, $10.36 3/4, while November rising 6.5 cents at $10.54 1/2. Soybean meal in September, $2.70 a ton, in the red, $283.60. October, though, half a dollar higher, $283.40. Soybean oil in September ended the day quarter penny a pound in the red at 51.5 cents. Wheat in September, 7 3/4 higher, $5.18. December rising 5 1/4, $5.34 1/4. Hard red winter wheat in September up 6 cents a bushel, $4.92 3/4, with December 4 cents more, $5.19 3/4. In the livestock market close for Friday, October live cattle up $2.72 a hundredweight, $239.65. December rising $2.17 at $240.77. Feeder cattle in September $2.97 a hundredweight more, $364.77. With October an increase of $2.95 at $364.47. Lean hogs in October, 75 cents a hundredweight more, $95.02, with December rising 42 cents at $87.40 a hundredweight. That is the Friday market close ahead of the 3-day weekend here for the Labor Day holiday. This is Farm Here Daily. And thank you so much again for joining us on Farm Here Daily. I hope you all have a wonderful holiday weekend for Labor Day. I just want to remind you that we do have a bunch of really great programming that happened over the last few days. If you haven't had the chance to check it out, we had Brent Johnson with the Iowa Farm Bureau join us talking about all sorts of things trade related. We also had Monty Shaw not too long ago pop on and had a really deep dive into the refinery exemptions and what that may mean and what folks are thinking about as we approach those. So make sure to check out some of the other podcasts we've had over the last few days, and there are certainly some things to see there. This is Farm Here Daily, of course, a Field Forward podcast, and thank you for listening here. Again, in order to continue to produce this type of local content, we would love to have you join our community. So please give the podcast a follow and check out our social media channels at Field Forward Pod. You can also find me on social media at Geiger Reports. Again, I am your host, David Geiger, and we'll be back again on Tuesday. Have a great Labor Day holiday weekend.